So we're looking at Parshat Toldot.
Hi.
And this is one of the shiurim that I heard from Rav Liebtag many years ago. I remember where I was. I downloaded this shiur in Israel. I'd heard him speak vaguely about it, and so I downloaded a shiur to listen to in the car when I was getting my car to get a roadworthy test, and I listened to it while I was waiting in line there, and I had nothing to do except listen to this shiur, and I was like, wow, this is very fascinating. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys tonight. So what we're going to look at is the story of the transfer of the bracha of Yitzchak to Yaakov and to Esav. And we're going to look at three different things, two in particular. We're looking at bracha, bechora, and bechira. Bracha, bechora, and bechira. Bracha means blessing. Bechora means firstborn rights. And bechira means chosenness. All right, if anybody wants to find the shiur that this is based off, you can look at OU Torah. I'll put it in the chat here. This is where Rav Liebtag lays this all out.
But is that really referring to the birthright, not at the end of Yitzchak's life when he mainly blessed Yaakov?
Actually, no, we're going to be speaking not that much about the idea of birthright, because we'll assume that the firstborn right is not the main point of this.
It's the one that was sold. We're not talking so much about the one that was sold from Esav to Yaakov. More about what
the
Yitzchak
brachot
gives to Yaakov.
Right. What Yaakov and Rivka sees the need for Yaakov to trick out of his father. And there's multiple brachot that's given in this week's parsha, and really it's quite in a way confusing to think about which is doing what, because we've got the bechora which Yaakov buys off his brother for the lechem and zida hashim in the beginning, but we've also got the bracha that Yaakov takes from Esav by trickery, by tricking his father out of it. Then we've got a surprising fact that Esav is going to appeal to his father and say, "What? You've only got one bracha? Please, can I have another one?" And Yaakov sort of resists, and he says, so Yitzchak sort of resists, and he says, "I can't really give you another. I gave your brother the bracha." But he said, "Come on, please." So he actually does give him another bracha after the appeal. So Esav does get a bracha, and then at the very end of the parsha, when Yaakov is leaving, he knows that Esav wants to kill him now, and he's on his. And Rivka has already told him he needs to go, and his father also tells him he needs to go, without knowing that Esav wants to kill him. The father tells him he needs to go find a wife, and as he's saying goodbye, he gives him another bracha. These brachot all have different roles. And so we're going to look at the different roles of the different brachot. And we're going to contrast bracha and bechira. The bechora, which is the other one, which happens in the very beginning, we're going to assume has the following relationship to the others. Number one, the bechora, the firstborn right, carries with it a double inheritance, a double portion of inheritance. So you might say that whatever the bracha is going to be, the firstborn, so to speak, has a right to a double portion of that. Secondly, the bechora might affect the bechira, which we're going to explain as chosenness, because there might be an assumption that the firstborn, if there's going to be a choice between who is going to be chosen, then it might the default might be the firstborn. However, that's not necessarily the case, but it might be a starting assumption that that if there's going to be one child that's going to be chosen out of the several children, then maybe it would be the firstborn, maybe not. Okay. So our plan for today is we're going to set up what we know so far about Bechira. Then we're going to contrast Bechira and Bracha. They're
different smell, they're different models.
They are, right.
One's a fest and one's a front.
Right?
The Bechira is the same as Bracha, same like this.
Right.
One's chosenless and one is first.
Yeah, but that sounds the same, but they're actually different models.
They do. They sound the same, but also one has a yud in it, obviously. Bechira. But we're also going to look at what was Yaakov trying to get? What was Yitzchak planning to give to Esav, and why? What was Rivka thinking when she saw the need to steal in and change the story? Why did, if Yitzchak had a good theory, which we'll explain, he had a good idea in mind, why did Rivka seek to change that? And then what happened later with the final bracha at the end of the parsha? Is that changing things? Is Yitzchak changing his perspective on things? And then we're going to kind of, B'ezras Hashem, learn a lesson from all of this for ourselves. Okay. So firstly, story so far with Bechira. So we have Abraham, the Bechira starts at Abraham, chosenness. In Parshat Lech Lecha, Bereshit, Perek Yud Beis, Hashem chooses Abraham, Lech Lecha Meretz Moladcha, I'll make you in a great nation, Avarcheka, I'll bless you. Vagalash Mecha, B'yei Bracha, you will be a blessing. Vavarchecha, Makalelcha, or Bat V'nivruchu V'cha Kol Mishpachot Adama. This is something we're going to see again in this week's Parsha. This idea is going to continue through Yitzchak. The idea that this is the definition of Bechira, the chosenness of Avraham Avinu to be the avenue through which Hashem reaches the rest of the world. We spoke about this last week and many times in Sefer Bereshit. This is one of them, a major theme, that Abraham has Bechira. But the key point that we need to get out of this is that something that we also mentioned before. Every time we have Bechira, how do we know we're talking about the chosenness as opposed to a bracha? It's that Bechira is always accompanied by the promise of Zerah and the promise of Eretz, descendants and the land, because the mission is to, with a narrow focus, succeed on one family, with Hashem having a close relationship with that family, and then being able to disperse that to the rest of the world. So for that, Abraham needs to have descendants, and his descendants will need to have descendants. So that's an absolute essential component. And then Eretz is going to be where that family turns into a nation and then can spread that message on a level of a society.
And I need that so they can do all the mitzvahs properly.
Right. And Abby's just added, that's where they can do all the mitzvot properly. Absolutely. And have a Beit HaMikdash. Very correct. And the Ramban has a whole long analysis and extension of what you've just said. So here we have it. Up he has to go to the land in Lech Lecha, and he's promised to be a Goy Gadol, right? And that's indeed what happens, right? He goes to the Lech Lecha me'aretz moladcha el ha'aretz asher areka, and he's promised to become a Goy Gadol. Okay. Next. Now, later, we find out that Hashem chooses that the Bechira process, the selectiveness of that process is not finished with at Abraham. Abraham doesn't know what we know now, that there's going to be Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and then there's going to be 12 Shvatim. could be, so far as Abraham knows, that he is chosen and all his children will be also the extension of that family. Until we have the problem with Hagar and Sarah and Yishmael, and how Yitzchak, when Yitzchak is born, Sarah says, she says to Abraham, we need to get rid of this woman and her son. And skipping ahead to Bereshit, Perek Chaf Aleph, Perek Pasuk Yud, V'tomer LaAvram, Garesh hama hazot ve'et bana, ki lo yirash et ben hama hazot im beni im Yitzchak. Send away the slave woman and her son, because he will not inherit with my son Yitzchak. V'yera davar mo'od ben Avraham al dodot bano. This was very bad in Avram's eyes. This is his son. He's considered Yishmael his son. He doesn't want to send Yishmael away. V'yomer Elohim el Avram, al yera beinech al anar v'al amatecha. Do not think badly about the son, the lad and your maidservant. Everything that Sarah says, listen to her. Now here comes the kicker. Because the zera that appears every time Hashem promises to Abraham, promises Aretz and Zerah, that's going to be Yitzchak, not Yishmael. In other words, Ishmael may become a great nation, but the zera of the bracha, of the bechira, when Hashem was promising Abraham but chosenness, that zera is going to be coming through Yitzchak. This is a surprise to Abraham. He doesn't expect that Ishmael will be excluded from the chosenness process. But Hashem is telling him that this is indeed what is going to happen. All right? So we know that the chosenness is staying narrowed down. What do we have next? Starting in our Parsha. Our Parsha starts with the story of Yitzchak and, of Yaakov getting the birthright of Esav. And after that, there's a Rav, there's another famine in the land. And what do you do when there's a famine in Eretz Yisrael? Why is there a famine in Eretz Yisrael?
Egypt.
Right, very good. Why do you go to Egypt?
The Nile, is it?
The Nile River, exactly. Eretz Yisrael depends on rain. When there's no rain, you got to go to where they don't need rain, where there's a Nile River. So it's clear that Yitzchak is thinking about that, and he already heads off. He goes towards Grar, the land of the Plishtim. Now, if you think about where he was living, probably on the mountainous central plain in Eretz Yisrael, where is he going? Towards the Plishtim. That's towards the Mediterranean coast. The Plishtim live on the Mediterranean coast, around where Gaza is, right? So that is in the direction of Mitzrayim. So don't leave. Don't keep going. If you keep going in a westward direction, you'll get to Mitzrayim. But don't keep going. Stop. Don't go down to Mitzrayim. Here Hashem says to Yitzchak, that thing that I said to Abraham, now I'm telling you, it's come true with you. You are the person that's carrying forward the bechira that I promised to Abraham, the chosenness. First, Abraham was told about it, and now Yitzchak is being told about it, how it applies to himself. And therefore, it's important for him to stay in the land. And then he gets that further promise, similar promise to Abraham. Then I will increase your children like the stars in the sky. And I'll give you your children all these lands around you, the lands of Canaan. And essentially, and I mean essentially as in most importantly, the mission of Abraham in Pasuk Dalet of Perek Chaf Vav, this is one of the most important things Hashem ever says to Yitzchak. Pasuk Dalet Perek Chaf Vav, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed through you. This is the same mission that Hashem gave to Abraham Avinu. So we have the passing on of the Bechira associated with the Zerah, the Aretz, and the mission of V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama, or V'hidbaruchu b'zaracha kol yigei haaretz, which is the same idea in the different phrasing. Okay? So, the next question is, what is going to happen after Yitzchak? What's going to happen next generation? Is it going to be a continuation of the Bechira process, in other words, only whittling down further? Or are we going to have the expansion that we expect? Now, what do you guys think? What would Yitzchak have expected as being most likely? He knows he's got, so far, 2 sons, 1 wife, 2 sons, twins. What do you think he would have expected?
Probably an expansion, because he's only got the 2 siblings, and how many descendants. He wouldn't think of how many descendants from this one.
So maybe things one well.
Very good. Both of those. So Abby said, because he only has 2 children so far, and for both of them, and he's been promised many descendants, so probably all of them so far are going to be chosen. Avi has said that he's only got 1 wife, so it makes sense that the both her children, or all her children, will be chosen to continue the mission of Am Yisrael. Any other thoughts on mine?
I would think he would think only 1 would be chosen.
Interesting. Go on.
No, just because that's what happened with Abraham. So maybe he thought now only 1 will be chosen again.
Interesting. I think there's there's certainly a place to say that he could have looked back at what happened to him and his brother with Yitzchak and Ishmael, and say, only 1 of us was chosen. It might be that only 1 of my 2 children will be chosen. Yep, possible. Okay. So here's another factor to consider, is that who decides how the Bechira process will continue? Who decides whether both children will be chosen or whether only 1 child will be chosen? Who makes that call? See, I think Abraham certainly tried to make that call. He tried to say that all my children are included. He certainly tried to say that he didn't want to send away Ishmael. But maybe Sarah tried to make that call, right? Right. So, but Abraham and Sarah were at an impasse. They didn't agree, and they didn't know what to do. And Hashem himself had to step in and rule on that particular domestic dispute, and say, pardon?
I think I know what you got. So you got to say that because Abraham was first and Sarah was just one. Maybe for second time.
No, I'm going to say the opposite. I'm going to say, I'm going to say that it has to.
Both have different opinions now. You for once Yaakov.
Actually, the opposite. I'm going to say, Avi suggested that just as Abraham and Sarah had different opinions the first time around, so too Yitzchak and Rivka are going to have different opinions the second time. It's a good svara, good thought. I'm going to actually suggest the opposite, is that even though Abraham and Sarah had their own opinions, they acknowledged that the only true person who could make a call about this is Hashem, because the whole point about it is that you're being chosen by Hashem. And so it could be that Yitzchak and Rivka might have opinions about all this, but it could be that that they would still say, well, we can't make a call. It has to be Hashem's call. And in the meantime, we have no right to pass on the Bechira, the chosenness. So what do they have a right to pass on? Only bracha. Okay? Now we need to discuss what is bracha as distinct from Bechira.
Would it be any ratification by Hashem that Yaakov is not the chosen one?
Very good question. Excellent question.
Like he did with Yitzchak.
Yes, I think we do. I think we do, but not in this parsha. In next parsha. And maybe I'll let you tell me what you think it is. Yeah, the ladder. If we're going there already, Avi suggested that the confirmation of the choice of Yaakov is going to happen at the ladder scene, which I absolutely agree with. So here, Yaakov left Sheva, he has a sleep, and he sees a sulam heading with, based on the ground, and the top goes to Shamayim, the Malachim going up and down. That's what everybody talks about. But here is the more important part for Yaakov. More interesting than him than the Malachim is Hashem himself. Malachim make for good artwork, but Hashem himself, who we do not depict in artwork, is the main event in this scene. And he says, Hashem appeared to him in this moment, in this dream. This is the bracha. This is Bechira. This is the chosenness. This is the chosenness of Abraham, and it's being promised virtually word for word as the same way that it was done, promised to Abraham, to Yitzchak. It's now being promised to Yaakov in the scene of the ladder that's going to be next week. All right. So great question, Abby, asking, does Hashem confirm the choice of Bechira? Okay. So, in the meantime, this parsha, the whole controversies are discussing the brachot. Now, what's going on with the brachot? What is a bracha as opposed to a bechira? Bechira is being chosen for a special job, for a mission, selected for a job. And all the nations of the world have their missions. We have our mission. In the words of Rabbi Sachs, the world is an orchestra. Everybody has their instrument to play. And when we all play our own instruments, then we have harmony. We have a beautiful, beautiful song. But if we were to go and play somebody else's instrument, then that would be a loss because we wouldn't be playing our own instrument. So our instrument is our bechira, is our chosenness, is our job. We have a special job. We may feel like our job is perhaps one of the most special jobs, but it's a job that's in service of the rest of the world, of the rest of humanity. Bracha is something else. Bracha is a gift to give a personal destiny, which entails certain attributes and gifts, such as power and prosperity, leadership. If you have a bracha for leadership, then you have a personal destiny, a personal power, personal attribute that is being given to you that you can utilize, and that can help you achieve your bechira, your mission, right? But these are the gifts that can help you in your personal destiny in achieving your bechira. Okay, so go on.
You got a destiny. You got your. If you've got something you're chosen for,
Mm-hmm.
you're chosen to be a bricklayer or whatever it is. You need tools to be a bricklayer, right? You don't need a private jet for that.
It's true.
Right? So you can have a bracha to get the private jet, but it doesn't help you in the work as a bricklayer.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And there's a part of Hashem as well, that like leadership can be used to inspire other people to do other Hashem. So
It's true. Yeah. Abby says leadership can be used for Avodah Hashem, and all these brachot can be used for Avodah Hashem, and that's the idea. That all the brachot that we use should be that we receive, we should channel into our mission, right? let's just look at a few examples to see sort of how this is
Not necessarily, it's a broader sort of.
Yes, mission is much broader, right? The Bechira is a broader ideal, and the bracha is a specific way of achieving, or a specific tools and gifts to help us on our way to achieving that ideal, but that we could use them for other things theoretically, right? But having a look here at skipping back a little bit to Noach, actually a lot back, to when Noach wakes up from his sleep. This is Perek Tet of Bereshit. Wakes up from his sleep after Canaan has done what he, after after Ham has done what he's done to him. So he curses Ham, and he blesses Shem, and he also blesses Yafet. Now, Baruch Hashem Elokei Shem, B'hi Canaan Eved Lamor, Canaan should be a servant for him. Yafta Lehim LeYafet, may Hashem enlarge Yafet Vishkon Ba'alei Shem, and may he dwell amongst the tents of Shem, B'hi Canaan Eved Lamor, and may Canaan also be a slave to him. In other words, Noach gives two brachot to his children. Brachot are not exclusive. Everybody can have a bracha. Some brachot are exclusive, but the idea of getting brachot is not necessarily one person only, right? So,
As in the person giving them or the person receiving them?
the person receiving them. If we're talking about bechira, chosenness, then one person is chosen to the exclusion of another, right? One family, one nation is chosen, and the other nation is maybe chosen for something else, or it's not chosen in this way, right? But the idea of having a bracha is something that can be shared, and a great example of this is Birchat Yaakov at the very end of Sefer Bereshis in Perek Mem Tes, where he says he gives a separate bracha to all his children, pretty much. Reuven doesn't get such a good bracha. Shimon and Levi don't get such a good bracha, but more or less everybody else gets their own type of bracha. This is their own gifts, their own attributes, their own powers in the pursuit of their own broader shared mission. Okay, so for example, Reuven Bechori Ata Kochi V'Reishidoni Yeter Seid V'Yeter Az. You have you are my firstborn, the first of my vigor. You have excessive strength and excessive honor, or a different type of strength. Pachaz kamayim. Unfortunately, this is not such a great bracha, but he says just a warning, unstable like water. Let's go to a better one. Yehuda ata yaducha achecha, yelcha ba'oref avecha, yishtachavu lecha kol b'nei avicha. Yehuda gets a great bracha. Your brothers shall praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow to you. Okay, you'll be like a lion. Great bracha. And Zvulun, you'll dwell by the seashore. You'll be good at ships. Yisachar is strong as a donkey. Dan will govern his people as one of the tribes. So all these different the point is, brachot are not exclusive. Everybody can have a bracha, right?
Except when they go for the other guy's being a servant.
Pardon?
Except when he says that the other guy's going to be a servant.
Exactly. Okay, good point.
When he said that Canaan should be an Everton, where you probably go get Canaan and Brock another be a servant.
Right, exactly. So there are occasionally, as Avi's just pointed out, brachot that do conflict with other people's brachot. Okay, so here we are. If you look in in Parshat Toldot, Bereshit Perek Chaf Zayin, right? Where Yaakov has donned the hairy goat skin like his brother. His father's felt him, and he says, Kol Kol Yaakov v'yadai midei Esav. He's not really sure, but he's convinced enough to give him the bracha. What does he say? This is the bracha. The smell of my son is like the smell of the field that Hashem has blessed. So I'm in Pasuk Chaf Zayin. May Hashem give you the dew of the heaven, the fat of the land, abundance of grain and wine. May nations bow to you, serve you, and may people bow to you. May you be a leader, a master of your brother. And may the children of your mother bow to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. What was the bit in there that's the exception to the rule that you can't share? Everybody can have the Shmanei Haaretz. Everybody can have a Rov Dagan V'Tirosh. What cannot everybody have? Very good. Gvir la'achecha. Not everybody can be the master of their brothers. There's only room for one master amongst the brothers. That is, that's a bracha you can't share.
Unless maybe it's in different areas.
Unless it's in different areas. Okay, Abby says, unless it's in different areas. But at this point,
we also later on when Asa got the bracha, I think what happens is if we don't behave, then it goes the other way around.
it's true.
So there's times for this time for the other one.
Yeah.
Times or areas.
That's what happens later. That was Asa's bracha. Yeah?
That's true. That's true. So Avi's just pointed out that when Esav comes to try and get his bracha, it's going to be, he's going to get the ability to rise up over Yaakov when Yaakov falls. But at this point, we've seen the idea of Bechira as it has appeared through Abraham, through Yitzchak, and we're parking that for the moment to look at bracha and how bracha, we looked at that idea per se, and we looked at it in the case of Noach, case of the Birchat Yaakov, and now we're looking at applying it to this particular story. And we see that leadership is a part of it. We also note that nowhere in this bracha is there any mention of Zerah, Aretz, or the idea of V'nivrachu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. There's Mevarchecha Baruch, Orecha Aor, but
It didn't come from Hashem.
pardon?
This comes from here, not from Hashem.
Okay, nice. Avi said this comes from Yitzchak and not from Hashem. It's true. You know, perhaps Yitzchak is thinking, in fact, I really think at this point, Yitzchak is not planning on this being a point of choosing between each son. Perhaps he believes this is something that only can come from Hashem. And until he hears otherwise, he's going to assume that both his children are equally as chosen as he is, right? They got one mother. It's just, we can assume that both Yaakov and Esav at this point thinks Yitzchak. I'm assuming they're both as chosen as each other. So he gives Esav a bracha. Now, why does he give Esav the bracha though? Why does he want to give Esav the bracha? He gets tricked and gives it to Yaakov. But why does he want to give the bracha of Esav, the bracha that can't be shared, the bracha of Hevei Gvir la'achecha, v'yishtachvu lecha b'nei imecha, be the master of your brothers and that your mother's sons bow down to you? Why does he want to give that to Esav?
Isn't that because Yitzchak saw Esav's potential?
Go on.
He had such great potential. He could have reached the heights, but obviously that's not what happened.
Very good, Hannah. And what was his potential specifically? What do we know about Esav? How has he been described so far? what is he? What is he like so far in the Tanakh? Remember, he hasn't started gnashing his teeth and said he wants to kill anyone. What do we know about Esav so far? He's a hunter, says Abby. What else do we know about Esav?
Well, he deals with the physical world, like him and Yaakov are complete opposites. Because
Correct.
Yaakov, sits and he wants to study Torah, and
Very good.
Esav. So I mean, when you think about it, like in terms of bringing people close to Yiddishkeit, Esav could have been better because he was out there in the world. He knew what was out there and how to deal with it.
Absolutely. Esav was the Ish Sadeh, the man of the world, the man of the field. If, as you so well put, you excellently put it, if the mission is engaging with the other people in the world, and Yaakov is an Ish Tam Yosheva Halim, he doesn't like going outside. He's an introvert. He just loves staying home in this nice, warm, comfy couch and reading his books. Then he's not going to be so excellent at the mission of the Hashem has bequeathed to Abraham and Yitzchak. He might have an important role to play. He might be able to give spiritual guidance to the overall, organization, but this worldly presence and engine and powerhouse seems to be, at this point, Esav, right? Where are we? We know that he's a hunter, as Abby said. We also know that he's a Ish Sadeh, a man of the field. There's a lot of similarities. This is not from Rav Liebtag here, but not Rav Liebtag in this year, but a lot of similarities between Esav and David HaMelech. David HaMelech is also a redhead, just like Esav. He's also known for his hair. His hair is mentioned. How many people in Tanakh's hair is mentioned? David's hair is mentioned. He's also known for traveling with 400 men. David, in the early stages of his career, travels with a band of 400 warriors, just like Esav. David HaMelech is also a man of violence. Unfortunately, as sad as it is to admit, David HaMelech was a warrior. Most of our heroes in Judaism are not warriors. David HaMelech, Shimshon, they're warriors. But most of our heroes are teachers. Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher. All our sages are teachers. Yeshua, true, he was a warrior in a way. He was also a teacher. Perhaps you could argue he was a warrior too. But Shmuel, Navi, one of the greatest leaders we've ever had, not a warrior at all. And he picked up a sword to kill Agag, the king of Amalek, but only once he was already captured. He didn't enter the battle himself. So it's unusual. And David HaMelech, you might argue, is a person that is this worldly, and he harnesses that for Avodas Hashem. And in a sense, in a way, he becomes like the ideal. He is extremely worldly. He engages even in the worst and most difficult and challenging aspects of this world. In other words, physical violence and killing other people, but he does it all for the sake of Hashem. That's the ultimate, isn't it? David HaMelech, who does, it's not the ultimate to have to be violent, but the ultimate to engage deeply in this world and to elevate this world. That I think, Chana, is what you're getting at when you said Esav has tremendous potential, because it's all very well to sit and be a tzaddik and in your tent by yourself learning Torah. It's very good, but if you can get deeply involved in the world and elevate the world around you, that's why Hashem created humanity. Hashem has enough malachim and shamayim. He doesn't need more malachim. He needs people. My Rosh Yeshiva Rav Amital used to always say, Malachim yeshli, anshe kodesh ani chafetz. I have enough malachim. I seek people, humans of holiness. Humans that will engage in holiness. And Asaph has that capacity. He's got the capacity to engage deeply in the world and to elevate that for Hashem. And that's what Yaakov sees. That's what Yitzchak sees. So why does Rivka intervene? It's good theory, right, Hannah? Yeah. Now, it's possible that she just knew her sons. That's good. That's a very good theory. And I've often thought that. But the Rosenberg has another perspective on this, which I've never really realized. And I'm very excited to share with you guys, which is this. When she's pregnant, she gets nevuah. She says, the children are struggling within her. She says, why is this? If this is true, why am I here? What am I doing? She went to seek out Hashem. Hashem says to her, you have two nations, and two peoples from your womb will separate. And one people shall be mightier than the other people. And the older will serve the younger. This is not two people who will be part of the same nation. These are two separate nations. Hashem is stepping on the scene. In Yitzchak didn't think he could choose between his children because that's Hashem's decision. Here, Hashem is informing Rivka. Avi says, all these years, she never said anything to her husband about this? Good question. So let's first just solidify this point. She has been told by Hashem that there's going to be two separate nations, not one. They're not going to be the capacity for both of them to be chosen because there's two divergent people out there. They're coming out of her. And she's even told the Rav Yavod Sa'ir, the older will serve the younger. She knows the end of the story. It's not a question for her. She's got nevuah about this, right? Going to the Gemara, she was told by Shem got the nevuah. Okay, going to the Parshat of the Tanakh, Hashem spoke directly to her and said, two separate nations, the younger will be the master. So she feels like she knows what's going on. And if and this one part of the bracha, now here's something that I've often taught this differently, and I've often thought that Rivka really thought that Yaakov was actually planning on not giving a bracha, but giving the bechira in this scene, in the scene of the Yaakov dressing up. I think that would be a huge motivation for her if she thought that Yaakov was going to miss out on the chosenness that he really deserved. That would be a huge motivation for her to get involved. So yeah, Rav Liebtag suggests that that's not the way it worked. That Yitzchak didn't think he could give that out. That he believed that they're both chosen, and as a result, Rivka still needed to intervene because she knows that one of those brachot will include you will be the leader, you'll be the master of your brother, and And if he gives that bracha to Esav, that's going to wreak havoc on the chosenness that's supposed to be given to the younger brother. So, so that's why she intervenes. Now, why didn't she tell her husband? Now, Rav Liebtag has a few ideas. Number one, he says, could be that she assumes that he knew. She might, in her humility, have said, what, Hashem would have just told this to me, maybe he told my husband too. Or she may have not wanted to tell him for some reason. He's not so clear about that. I think, overall, it seems like there isn't the best communication between Yitzchak and Rivka. Rivka could have theoretically, why did she have to dress up her son and trick her husband? And also she doesn't tell him that Esav wants to kill him. And it's really, there really seems to be a lot of differences between Yitzchak and Rivka. And maybe the age difference between them was a factor as well. But anyway, then, okay. So what we've seen is we've seen why Yaakov wants to give the bracha Esav, and we've seen why Rivka knows that can't happen. So what does happen? Yaakov gets the bracha, and when Esav arrives, he finds out that he's lost the bracha. He's deeply distressed. He screams out in a scream that's good, great, extremely bitter. Bless me too, Father. He says, your brother came with guile, with trickery. He took your bracha. He's called Yaakov because he stole my birthright twice over. He took my bechora, and now he took my bracha. He says, have you nothing left? Do you not have anything left for you for a bracha? So he says, you know what? I've made him the master over you. But you know what? I've given him Dagan v'Tirosh. What am I going to give you? So he says, have you got nothing left for me? Come on. So he says, okay. You can also have Hinei Mishmanei Haaretz Yeh Moshavecha. You're also going to have the fat of the earth. You can also have abundance of produce from the earth. Umital Shemaim Me'al, and from the dew of the heaven above. You'll live by your sword. Maybe not the best for Yaakov, but Esav doesn't necessarily mind. That Achicha Ta'avod, you'll serve your brother. When he descends, you will lead. This is Yaakov saying, even at this point, they're both going to get a bracha. It's true, one bracha is not shared, but what's happening is that he still believes that the bechira is off the table. Why is the bechira off the table? Because A, it's not his to give, and B, he really thinks both brothers are chosen. Still, perhaps. But what is the final scene in the Parsha? The final scene in the Parsha is, I think, very revealing. Okay. In the beginning of Perek Chaf 28, Vayikra Yitzchak el Yaakov, Vayevarech oto. This is after Yaakov's stolen the bracha. Esav has resolved to kill him. Rivka's found out about it. She knows he has to run away. She told him he needs to run away, but she's very concerned about who he's going to marry, and so is Yitzchak. So he says you should not marry a woman from the Canaanite. The Canaanites are not they don't have good behavior. Consistently, we had it last week. Abraham was horrified by the notion that Yitzchak would marry a Isha Canaanite. He has to go rather to back to the family, to Terach's family, like we learned about last week's Parshat. Go and marry one of the daughters of Lavan. May Hashem bless you. And may He increase you, make you fruitful and multiply, and may you become a kahalamim, an assembly of peoples. Abraham. Whoa!
Oh, so it's already earlier.
This is, may He give you the bracha of Abraham. This is Yitzchak saying to Yaakov as the dust has settled on Esav, on the Yaakov stealing Esav's bracha. But here he's saying, may He give you the bracha of Abraham. Ulezaracha itach, and to your children, your descendants, Zerah, right? L'rishtachai eretz megurecha. May you inherit the eretz that you are sojourning in. Hashem natan Elohim la'Avram, that Hashem has given Abraham. What's going on? He's giving him the bechira. He's giving him the bechira.
Giving a bracha should have it.
Interesting. Saying Hashem should give you the bechira, correct. Why is this happening? Rav Liebtag suggests that maybe Rivka realized she needed to tell him. I also thought for many years, and I still kind of think, maybe he always meant to do this. Maybe he always planned. Maybe he knew. Maybe he did know from Hashem. Maybe he knew from knowing his son. Rav Liebtag thinks he couldn't have done this unless Rivka had told him, because that way he would know that it was based off Nevuah that would come to Yaakov, which I think makes a lot of sense. And that's why he does it now. Here it is. Yeah, Yitzchak is giving the bechira to Yaakov. The final scene of brachot is not brachot really. It's bechira, chosenness. And this bechira is the most important thing of all. More important than Shmanei Haaretz. It's useful to be the leader of the two brothers, but we've seen throughout our history that it's not always necessary to lead the nations of the world to carry on with our mission. Bezrat Hashem, one day we'll lead the nations of the world with the mission and the message of Hashem and Abraham. And v'nivrachu v'chal kol mishpachot ha'adamah. But for now, we're doing our thing. And throughout the last several thousand years, we're doing our thing. And whether we're leading the nations of the world or not, we still are able to maintain our mission. And we're going to see also later, when Yaakov is eventually done with Lavan's house, he's going to meet Esav, who's bowing down to him over and over and over. Why is he trying to placate him? Because he knows that Esav was upset about the part of the bracha that he couldn't get, which is he's going to be the master. And Esav is bowing down to him and saying, you can have it. You be the master. Don't kill me. That's the part that you can't have and you really want. And you want to kill me for it. Have it. Don't kill me. You be the master. That's what's going to happen later when Yaakov is going to visit Esav. But the truth is that Yaakov really does deserve both the bracha and the bechira. And that's why he got it, exactly. Now, we've got one last question to answer, which is, why is it have to be like this? Why does it have to be so complicated? Why couldn't it just have been that Hashem would have been clear and upfront from the beginning with everybody? And then there would have never been this animosity and this sense of having to trick the brachot and out of Yaakov. Why is this? Rav Liebtag, I think, has a beautiful suggestion. He suggests that we need to have the lachatchila, the ideal, and the second option. The ideal, or the first thought, right? The first thought was that Yaakov and Esav can coexist side by side. And Esav can be the physical involvement with the world, and Yaakov can be the spiritual involvement with the upper worlds, with the Shamayim, with Hashem. Esav can be the Ish Sadeh, the man of the world around and the people around. Yaakov can be the Ish Tam, the guy who sits home and connects to Hashem there. And then they can be in partnership. And we need to have Yitzchak's Havamina. We need to have Yitzchak's first thought to think that they can exist in partnership side by side, because ideally, that's true. Ideally, Yaakov should be able to exist side by Esav, perhaps. However, I mentioned before, Yaakov deserves the bracha. Why does he deserve it? Because when he comes to get the bracha, he dresses up as Esav and he puts the skin on his arms and the hair. And Yaakov says, "Akol kol Yaakov v'yadayim yidei Esav." But it's not just, he's not being fooled by that. It's really true. Yaakov is the voice of Yaakov, but he has the hands of Esav. He has the ability to take action like Esav. In the moment of him dressing up like Esav, he is not pretending to have the hands of Esav. He really does have the hands of Esav. He can be this worldly. He can do a trick to get his way when called upon. We're going to see this when he deals, not only this week's parsha, but also when he deals with Lavan next week. Lavan tries to swindle him, and he can swindle him right back by the end of it. First, yes, Yaakov gets swindled. He has to work for Lavan for 14 years. But at the end, he works another 6 years for himself, and Lavan tries to swindle him out of his wages. Yaakov can swindle him right back, and he makes a packet of money on Lavan, because he's learned the Yidei Esav, and eventually Yaakov can fight the mysterious Ish in the nighttime. Is the Sarosh Shel Esav, the angel of Esav, and he can overcome him. He can fight him all night long and not lose, because he has the Yidei Esav.
Why does Hashem want that you again? Because normally Hashem doesn't like dishonesty.
Because
this
is our way to succeed in the world. Sometimes this is the world, We need to be able to push forward with our mission, even when there's resistance, even when there is opposition, even when there's people who will get in our way. And in a way where when we utilize these traits, as you said in the beginning, Avodat Hashem, that redeems them, that redeems those traits. So Yaakov gains the prosperity of the bracha and the leadership. And at the end of the day, we can learn from that too. We can learn that we can have the Yidei Esav, and we can have we must have the call of Yaakov, but ultimately the brachot that we get, any leadership that we get, we need to utilize in the service of the bechira, the chosenness, our mission. We use our bracha for the sake of our bechira. And the bechira, once again, is the ideal of v'nivrchu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama, that all the nations of the earth should be blessed through us. Thanks very much.